Break from my slightly hectic schedule today. This is my day off, by all accounts. I don't really have days off anymore. Doesn't really work like that. Not that I'm complaining. I like having lots to do. I like having shit to do every moment of every second of every day. It keeps me ticking over. I like the impetus of it. I find I'm one of those people where if I don't have something to do every moment of every day, then I just sort of I become like a jellyfish or like a blancmange and just sit there doing very little. I like having a routine and a schedule to keep. As I think it was Clive Barker. It almost certainly was. If I quote anyone, it usually almost universally is Clive Barker, who said, "Be routinized and consistent in your life so that you can be inspired and spontaneous in your work." And I totally agree. I totally get that. I mean, that works so well for me. That works so well. I like having routine and schedule because it helps me to be creative. It helps to keep it going somehow. It helps to get your mind. You know, there's little routines and rituals that you follow before you sit down to do something, to get yourself in the right frame of mind. I'm sure those of you who have jobs that require this understand what I mean, where you need to be in a particular frame of mind to do them. This is exactly the same. I find that you have to place yourself in that correct state. It's almost like a kind of self-hypnosis where your mind notices the patterns, the rituals trigger the state of mind, and it just goes into that state. And then suddenly it flows, suddenly it works. I find it works beautifully for me. Another tip that I follow is from Harlan Ellison, who I didn't even know of until very recently. I learned of him through the video game adaptation of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which I only paid attention to because of the title. The title is fucking amazing. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. That is brilliant. If I saw that on a bookshelf, I would pick that up immediately, and I did. After watching a couple of long plays of the video game here on YouTube, I went and got the short story collection that it's based on, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It is this nihilistic dredging of the subconscious, the utter shit and degradation of the human subconscious. That's what he loves. That's what he loves to rake through, and I love it. I absolutely love it. The nihilism, the misanthropy of that man's work is unbelievable. It's great. But he says, and again, something I totally agree with, when you finish writing, stop halfway through a sentence, halfway through a paragraph, halfway through a thought. Don't finish it. Leave it hanging. Then come back to it and finish it with the next set of writing. And I find that works so well. It works so well. I don't know why. I imagine it's because it keeps the impetus going. You know, you immediately go back to the state of mind that the thought occurred in, so you can finish it, and then it just flows, rather than if you finish on a full stop. If you finish on a full stop, then it stops, and I find you come back to it and you're like, what was I going to write next? Where was this going? It works so well. It's a little trick. It's a little psychological trick. Works very well. But that wasn't what I wanted to talk to you about. As I said in the previous recording of this video, which my computer fucking ate, so I have to do it again now and make it seem like it's spontaneous, which is fun. That's always fun, isn't it? So if you'll indulge me and just pretend that this is spontaneous and all of the fury and the passion and whatnot that I'm effecting is genuine. What I wanted to talk to you about was the impending remake of the Poltergeist film, this seminal 1980s sort of horror film, Poltergeist. There's a remake of it coming out later this year by all accounts. I only learned this yesterday, and my initial reaction was one of fury, really. I mean, it really was a case of fuck right off with you. I may be totally wrong in that. I am totally aware that remakes can work. I know they can work. And there are excellent examples out there. Even in horror, even given the legacy of shit remakes that there are in horror cinema, there are some good examples. A really good example being Cronenberg's The Fly. Most people, a lot of people don't even know it's a remake. They don't know the original film exists. The one with Vincent Price, where he's running around chasing his wife with a big, silly styrofoam fly's head. That happens. Yeah, that actually happens. Still, it's a good film. It's a good film. It's just not as good as the remake. What Cronenberg does is he reimagines the core premise and core concept to make it salient to the concerns of the cultural climate of the era. So whereas the first one is a bit of a silly monster movie, it's sort of a science gone wrong movie, the remake, it broaches upon lots of different concerns of the 1980s and which have been consistent since then. Things such as the preoccupation with bodily decay and disease, pandemics, cancer. Cancer was a big thing in the 1980s. I mean, it's consistently a big thing, but there was lots of media exposure regarding cancer and lots of concerns over, largely media driven, over what causes cancer. Body horror, AIDS, obviously, HIV, which was very prevalent in the 1980s, very culturally prevalent. What you see in Cronenberg's reimagining of The Fly is a body decaying. You see a man breaking down piece by piece on screen in front of you and transforming. There are issues of transformation, not only of the body but the mind in Cronenberg's The Fly. I mean, his entire perception of reality of himself is warped and twisted by this experiment gone wrong, to the point whereby he becomes something beyond human, something that's neither the fly nor human, but something else, another thing. And that's brilliant, that's wonderful. In fact, it is vastly superior to the original film. And it's a classic example of how you do it well. Carpenter, John Carpenter's The Thing. Fantastic example. Not only a great horror film, not only a great science fiction film, but one of my favourite films, full stop. It's a fantastic example of how you create tension in a film. Again, a remake of an original film, which is an adaptation of a short story I think it's by Robert Bloch. I'm not sure, but the short story is Who Goes There. The original film is The Thing from Outer Space, which is very similar to Carpenter's The Thing, in that it's a very similar setup, very similar situation. The notion of this Arctic research base, we're isolated, which is invaded by some sort of alien aggressor. Very, very similar. But whereas the original film is a sort of Reds under the bed Cold War film, it's about foreign invasion, as is the remake. The remake is also about foreign invaders. The remake, Carpenter very cleverly reimagines those premises to make them more like Cronenberg's preoccupations, more to do with the corruption of the body, the invasion and corruption and distortion of the body, and enhances the tension because you just do not know who or what the thing is. Even the people who are infected by it may not realize that they're infected by it. And it insidiously corrupts and transforms from the inside. It's beautifully clever, beautifully clever. And it reflects a lot of the cultural concerns of the era, also the political concerns. The notion of sort of ideological invasion is certainly there. Certainly that's there. Of not being able to trust people you presume to know. And it's a masterwork in how you create tension in a film. If you watch the film now, not a lot happens for the first hour or so. It is all just cranking it up. And they are both excellent examples of how you create character in film. None of the characters in The Thing or even in The Fly announces themselves as such. You learn who they are by looking at how they interact, looking at how they react to the situation. And all of them are distinct. All of them are really interesting characters. Subtly communicated and established. There are little idiosyncrasies that they do. They don't tell people about it. The camera doesn't zoom in on them or anything. They're just there. They're just doing things in the background and they just act in particular ways. It makes it feel very documentary, even though it is a narrative work. And it works beautifully, it works really well. But most remakes are not like that. Certainly most horror remakes are not like that at all. The most horror remakes, they range from the competent but pointless, such as the Omen remake, which is, or the Psycho remake, shot for shot remakes of the original films, but with a younger cast. You wonder why. What's the point? They lack. What the people who option these things don't understand generally is that to make these remakes work, you have to reimagine the core premise and make them salient to the concerns of the new era. That's why the original films have such cult followings in the first place. It's because they snare that lightning in the bottle. They capture something essential about the climate of their production. They snare the cultural consciousness, and you can't do it deliberately. You just can't. It happens. Something about what you create catches. It catches in the cultural consciousness. It lands on the right desk. It's seen by the right people, and it occurs in the right era, and that's it. You create a phenomena, and it happens by accident. You can't recreate it. Then this is the thing they don't understand. And not only do they not understand it, they largely don't even attempt to do it. They just recreate the original films with younger cast and with less tension and with a faster pace. So nothing that makes the films what they were is there. It's a shell. It's a painting of the original film, but skewed and hollow. It lacks the guts. It lacks the atmosphere. It lacks the depth. This may not be true of the Poltergeist remake. For all I know, it could be the next thing. It could be the next Fly. It could even be the next Poltergeist, as it claims to be. And the original Poltergeist is a great example of what I was just talking about. It is so much of its era. You go and watch it now, and you will see a film that shrieks and reeks of the 80s. It screams early 1980s, late 70s, from the clothes, the fashions, the hair, to the way it's shot, the way it looks, the way the shots are framed, the way scenes play out, the acting, the script. It's all of its era, and that's why it works. It's this brilliant, fantastically executed ghost train ride that is simultaneously subtle and creepy and surreal and overt and fantastical. It shifts so fluidly between those two. It ramps up tension like a big old serious nasty horror film and then explodes into a ghost train ride where you've got the most absurd situations and brilliant effects and phantasms and manifestations, like very, very akin to those that you find in the Ghostbusters film, but framed so beautifully that they are actually really scary. It's a stunner. It's an absolutely stunning film. And forgive me for being presumptive on this issue, but I don't think the remake is going to have that. I just don't. I think it's going to be a CG-laden, hollow corpse of a thing. If I will review it on this channel, I will go and see it. I am one of the marks who will go and see it because I'm the established audience. I want to see a film that's got the Poltergeist label on it. And don't get me wrong, I mean, the original Poltergeist is great, but the sequels vary massively in quality. They tend to have good elements, but as whole works, suck by and large. But the original is a stunner. And I just don't think the new film is going to have it. I think it's something that was decided by a committee. I don't think that somebody who loves the original saw that film and said, here is something that we can use to explore something new. We can explore current issues. We can use it to reflect something that's happening now and make it relevant. No, that's not what happened at all. It was decided by committee. We can make money off of this. This is something that hasn't been raped yet. And we don't have to make a decent film as such. We can just get some half-assed director, some half-assed script, churn it out, and people will go and see it, because they will. We will. That I imagine that's what it is. I may be wrong. I may be totally wrong. And I will, if it is that film, if it's that film that is the good remake, that does something credible and interesting and relevant with the material, fine. Fine, and I will sing its praises to the rafters and beyond. But you know what? I sincerely doubt that's what it's going to be. I sincerely doubt it.